The burning wreckage of Thomas Reed's fighter craft illuminated the purple-tinted sky of Zenora. His emergency landing had carved a deep trench through the crystalline forest, leaving a trail of broken azure trees in his wake. The acrid smell of burnt metal filled his lungs as he struggled to free himself from the cockpit, his vision blurring from a gash above his eye. "Just my luck," he muttered, checking his oxygen meter. The atmospheric converter was damaged, giving him perhaps an hour of breathable air. After that, Zenora's toxic atmosphere would slowly suffocate him. His emergency beacon was silent, the crash had destroyed it along with most of his communications equipment. Thomas knew the odds. He was deep in Zenoran territory, shot down during a reconnaissance mission gone wrong. The war between humans and Zenorans had raged for 3 years, sparked by territorial disputes over the resource-rich twin moons. If Zenoran forces found him, he'd face interrogation or worse. The sound of crystalline branches cracking caught his attention. Thomas drew his sidearm with trembling hands, fighting against the pain shooting through his ribs. Through the violet mist, a towering figure emerged, a Zenoran warrior, easily 12 feet tall. Her green skin seemed to shimmer in the light of the setting sun, and short purple hair framed a face that somehow managed to look both alien and striking. She carried a plasma staff, its tip glowing with deadly energy. Thomas tried to steady his weapon, but darkness was creeping into the edges of his vision. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the warrior's remarkable golden eyes studying him with, was that concern? When Thomas awoke, he expected to find himself in a Zenoran prison cell. Instead, he lay on a bed of soft moss in what appeared to be a cave dwelling. His wounds had been dressed with some kind of bioluminescent paste that tingled against his skin. Most surprisingly, he could breathe, an atmospheric converter hummed quietly nearby. "You're lucky I found you first," a melodic voice said in surprisingly good English. The Zenoran warrior stepped into view, ducking slightly under the cave's ceiling. The patrol units would not have been as understanding. "Why?" Thomas managed to croak. "Why help me?" She knelt beside him, still towering even at this height. "I am Dana. I serve as a guardian of the crystal forest, but I have grown weary of this war. Too many have died on both sides." She touched the converter. "This is forbidden technology, allowing humans to breathe our air. Having you here." She paused, her golden eyes intense. "If they discover I've helped you, the punishment would be severe." Thomas tried to sit up but failed. "Then why risk it?" Dana was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps because you are the first human I've encountered who didn't immediately try to kill me. Or perhaps..." She smiled slightly, revealing pearlescent teeth. "Perhaps I believe this war will only end when someone is willing to see the enemy as something more than just an enemy." A distant sound made her head snap up. "Patrol drones," she whispered. "They're searching the crash site. We must keep you hidden until you heal." She moved to the cave's entrance, her movements graceful despite her size. "Rest now, Thomas Reed. Tomorrow we must decide what to do with you." As Thomas drifted back to sleep, his last thought was of Dana's smile, so alien, yet somehow warming something deep within his chest. He didn't know if he could trust her, but for now, he had little choice. Outside, the twin moons began their nightly dance across the Zenoran sky, casting their pale light over a world where not everything was as simple as human versus alien. The days in Dana's cave blended together as Thomas recovered. Her dwelling was a marvel of Zenoran engineering, carved into the living crystal of the mountain. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins that adjusted their glow to match the natural circadian rhythm of its inhabitants, though Thomas found himself more fascinated by his unusual caretaker than her exotic home. Dana moved with a fluid grace that belied her massive size. She spent hours teaching him about Zenoran medicine while applying healing pastes to his wounds. The treatment stung but worked with remarkable efficiency. Within days, Thomas could walk without pain, though Dana insisted he remain hidden. Our bodies evolved to process crystal energy, she explained one evening, showing him a translucent stone that hummed with inner light. We learned to harness it for healing, for power, for life itself. This is why we fight so fiercely to protect our world. Thomas watched her handle the crystal with reverence. We were told your people were savages, bent on expansion. That you attacked our colonies without provocation. Dana's golden eyes flashed. And we were told humans were destructive parasites, strip mining worlds until nothing remained. She set down the crystal. How strange that neither story matches what I see before me. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Thomas learned she had been a scholar before becoming a warrior, studying ancient Xenaran texts about the first contact between their species, peaceful encounters that had somehow devolved into mistrust and eventually war. She, in turn, was fascinated by his descriptions of Earth's oceans, a concept foreign to her crystalline world. One morning, Thomas woke to find Dana in an unusual state of agitation. Surveillance has increased, she said, pacing the cave. They're expanding the search pattern. Someone must suspect. She paused, head tilted. Listen. Through the crystal walls came the distinctive hum of hover drones. They were closer than ever before. Thomas tensed, but Dana moved with practiced efficiency, activating a series of crystals that shifted the cave's entrance into shadow. The crystal matrix can bend light, she explained quietly. But it's not perfect. We must remain absolutely still. They stood frozen as the drone's scanning beam swept past their hiding place. Thomas found himself acutely aware of Dana's proximity, of the subtle warmth radiating from her skin. Despite their vast physical differences, something electric seemed to crackle in the space between them. The drone moved on, but the tension remained. Dana broke the silence first. This is becoming too dangerous. The patrols will eventually find this place. She turned to face him, her expression troubled. There's a neutral trading post near the twin moons. If we can reach it. We? Thomas asked, surprised by how much he wanted her to say yes. I cannot stay here now. Once they discover I've helped you, nowhere in Xenaran territory will be safe. She smiled wryly. Besides, someone needs to keep you from walking into crystal spider nests. The gravity of her sacrifice hit Thomas hard. You'd leave everything behind? Your home, your position, your people. Dana's hand brushed his shoulder, gentle despite its size. Perhaps it's time someone showed both our peoples that we don't have to be enemies. Her touch lingered. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we make for the Crimson Wastelands. The patrols avoid that region, for good reason. That night, Thomas lay awake, listening to the strange songs of the Crystal Forest. The twin moons cast double shadows through the cave's hidden entrance, and he wondered if any other human had seen the beauty he'd discovered here. Not just in the alien landscape, but in the heart of a supposed enemy who had risked everything to save him. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, but for now, in this hidden sanctuary, Thomas knew he'd found something worth any risk to protect. The Crimson Wastelands earned their name from the rust-colored crystal formations that jutted from the barren ground like broken teeth. Dana led Thomas through narrow passages between towering spires, her every movement precise and measured. The atmospheric converter strapped to his back hummed steadily, though each sound felt too loud in the eerie silence. The crystals here are unstable, Dana whispered, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. They can shatter at any moment, triggering chain reactions. This is why the patrol units avoid this region. She gestured at the twisted formations. But it's also why they'll never expect us to come this way. Their first warning came as a high-pitched whine. Dana grabbed Thomas, pulling him behind a crystal outcropping just as a massive formation exploded. Crystalline shrapnel filled the air, tinkling like deadly wind chimes as it rained down around them. Her body sheltered his, her skin surprisingly soft despite its armored appearance. "That was closer than I'd like," she murmured, helping him up. "We need to," she froze, head tilted. "Engines. Multiple signatures." Her expression hardened. "They've followed us." Through the hazy atmosphere, Thomas spotted the distinctive silhouettes of Xeneran pursuit craft. They must have detected the converter's energy signature, he realized. "I'm compromising your escape." Dana's response was cut short by plasma fire striking the crystal formations around them. The unstable structures began to resonate, their humming building to a dangerous pitch. "Run," she commanded, pushing him ahead of her. They sprinted through the crystal maze as explosions chased them, each blast triggering more unstable formations. Thomas's lungs burned as he pushed himself to keep pace with Dana's longer strides. She suddenly scooped him up, tucking him against her side as she leaped across a widening chasm. The pursuit craft's weapons had started a chain reaction. Entire sections of the wasteland were collapsing, crystal towers falling like immense dominoes. Dana navigated the chaos with incredible agility, but they were running out of stable ground. "There." She pointed to a dark opening in a massive crystal formation. "Underground passages. They're dangerous, but less dangerous than this," Thomas finished. They dove into the cave just as another explosion rocked the wasteland. Crystalline debris sealed the entrance behind them, plunging them into darkness broken only by the faint glow of bioluminescent veins in the walls. Dana's eyes shone in the dim light as she checked him for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," he assured her, suddenly very aware of their proximity in the narrow passage. "You saved my life. Again." "You're making it a habit of needing saving," she teased, but her smile faded as distant rumbling echoed through the tunnels. "We should keep moving. The underground network is extensive, it should lead us closer to the twin moons." As they made their way through the twisting passages, Thomas noticed Dana's usual grace was slightly off. "You're injured," he realized, spotting dark fluid seeping from a gash in her side. "Crystal shrapnel," she admitted. "It will heal." Thomas insisted on stopping, using the bioluminescent paste she'd taught him about to treat the wound. Her skin trembled slightly under his touch. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's been a long time since anyone cared for my wounds." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken words. Finally, Dana straightened. "We should rest here briefly. The pursuit ships can't follow us underground, but we'll need our strength for what lies ahead." As they settled in a relatively secure alcove, Thomas watched the play of light across Dana's features. She'd given up everything to help him, and yet here she was, still protecting him. In the soft glow of the crystal veins, he made a silent promise to prove worthy of her sacrifice. The underground passages eventually led them to the Twilight Valley, where the twin moons cast perpetual double shadows across the landscape. Thomas and Dana emerged into a world of deep purples and blues, where twisted crystal formations created natural archways overhead. The temperature had dropped significantly, their breath forming delicate frost patterns in the thin air. "The trading post is 3 days' journey across the valley," Dana explained, helping Thomas navigate the treacherous terrain. "But we're not alone here. The cold draws predators, crystal wolves and worse." As if summoned by her words, a haunting howl echoed through the valley. Dana's hand tightened on her plasma staff, her body tensing. "Stay close," she whispered. "They hunt in packs." The crystal wolves emerged from the shadows like living shards of ice, their translucent bodies reflecting the moonlight. Thomas counted 6 of them, each nearly as tall as he was. Dana moved with fluid precision, positioning herself between him and the pack. "Thomas," she said quietly, never taking her eyes off the predators, "when I tell you, run for that rock formation. I'll hold them off." "I'm not leaving you," he replied firmly, drawing his sidearm. The nearest wolf snarled, revealing teeth like diamond needles. The pack attacked as one. Dana's plasma staff blazed, cutting through the air in deadly arcs while Thomas's shots rang out with surprising accuracy. They fought back to back, moving in perfect synchronization as if they'd trained together for years rather than days. A wolf's claws raked across Thomas's arm, but before it could strike again, Dana was there, her staff shattering the creature into countless glittering shards. The remaining pack retreated, their howls fading into the distance. "Let me see," Dana said, gently examining his wound. Her touch sent warmth spreading through his body despite the cold. "This needs attention." They found shelter in a small cave, where Dana treated his injury with practiced care. "You fought well," she said softly. "Most humans would have panicked." "I had a good reason not to," Thomas replied, meeting her golden gaze. The air between them seemed to crystallize with unspoken emotion. Dana's hand lingered on his arm. "Thomas," she began, her voice uncertain for the first time since he'd met her. "What we're doing, it goes against everything my people believe. A Xenaran and a human. Does it matter anymore?" he asked. "After everything we've been through, do those old prejudices still mean anything?" She touched his face with impossible gentleness, her massive frame somehow making him feel protected rather than overwhelmed. "No," she whispered. "They don't." The kiss that followed defied all logic, all reason. She had to bend down, he had to reach up, and yet somehow it felt more natural than breathing. Her lips were softer than he'd imagined, tasting of crystal honey and stardust. When they finally parted, Dana's golden eyes seemed to glow with inner light. "The elders speak of soul binding," she said quietly. "When two beings resonate at the same frequency, like perfectly tuned crystals. I always thought it was a myth." "Maybe some myths are true," Thomas replied, drawing her down for another kiss. Outside, the twin moons aligned in their celestial dance, casting a single shadow for the first time in their cycle. Later, as they prepared to continue their journey, Thomas caught Dana watching him with an expression of wonder. "Having doubts?" he asked. She shook her head, a smile playing at her lips. "Only about why it took a war for us to find each other." Her expression grew serious. "The trading post ahead, it won't be easy. Neither of our peoples will understand this." "Then we'll make them understand," Thomas said with quiet determination. "One step at a time." They set out under the merged light of the twin moons, their hands intertwined despite their different sizes. The path ahead was uncertain, but they would face it together, a living testament that love could bridge even the vastness of space itself. The twin moons' trading post rose from the crystalline plains like a hybrid of human and Xenaran architecture, its spires reaching toward the dual moons overhead. Thomas and Dana approached the neutral territory's gates as the first rays of dawn painted the sky in shades of amber and violet. Guard posts on either side housed both human and Xenaran security forces, their weapons trained on the unusual pair. "Hold," a human guard called out. "State your purpose." Thomas stepped forward, conscious of Dana's protective presence behind him. "Lieutenant Thomas Reed, Earth Defense Force. I seek asylum and an audience with the Joint Council." A Xenaran guard towered in her watchtower, her plasma staff humming. "Guardian Dana, you are marked as a deserter. Explain your presence with this human." "I come bearing truth," Dana replied, her voice carrying across the crystalline plain. "About the war, about our peoples, about everything we thought we knew of each other." The gates opened with a grinding of crystal against metal. They were escorted to a vast chamber where representatives from both species sat in uneasy alliance. Thomas noticed how the council members stared at his and Dana's closeness, their joined hands drawing whispers from both sides. "Speak," commanded the human counselor, her gray eyes sharp. Thomas stepped forward. 3 weeks ago, I crashed in Xenaran territory. I expected death or imprisonment. Instead, I found understanding. Compassion. Truth. He looked at Dana. And something neither side thought possible. Dana addressed her people. We were wrong about humans, just as they were wrong about us. This war began from fear and misunderstanding, but it doesn't have to continue. You expect us to believe this relationship is natural, a Zeneran elder scoffed. Natural? Dana's golden eyes flashed. What could be more natural than finding connection across the stars? Our ancestors knew this, the ancient texts speak of cooperation, not conflict. We forgot those lessons, but we can remember them again. Thomas activated a holographic display, showing footage he'd recorded during his time with Dana. The crystal healing techniques, the sustainable energy harvesting, the profound respect for life that characterized Zeneran culture. Our peoples aren't enemies, he said. We're complementary. Your crystal technology combined with our spacefaring capabilities could open up new worlds for both species. The council chambers erupted in debate. Hours passed as Thomas and Dana answered questions, faced accusations, and stood firm in their conviction. Finally, the human counselor raised her hand for silence. What you propose is unprecedented, she said. But perhaps that is exactly what we need. The Zeneran elder nodded slowly. The crystal songs speak of change. Of new harmonies arising from discord. He looked at Dana. You have broken our laws, Guardian, but in doing so, you may have shown us a better path. The council's decision was unanimous. Thomas and Dana would become the first official ambassadors of a new joint initiative. Their mission would be to bridge the gap between their peoples, starting with cultural exchange programs and shared scientific research. Later, standing on a balcony under the twin moons, Dana pulled Thomas close. Did you ever imagine, she asked, when you crashed in my forest, that we would change the course of two civilizations? Thomas smiled, reaching up to touch her face. I never imagined any of this. But now I can't imagine anything else. The twin moons aligned once more, their light merging into a single brilliant beam. Below, in the trading post's plaza, humans and Zenerans mingled cautiously but with growing curiosity. Change would take time, but the first steps had been taken. What happens next? Thomas asked, watching their peoples begin to bridge the divide. Dana's answer was simple. We show them that love knows no boundaries, not of space, species, or fear. She bent down to kiss him, their silhouettes merging in the moon's light. We show them that the future is what we dare to make it. And there, under the twin moons, a new chapter began, not just for Thomas and Dana, but for all their peoples. Their love had done more than cross boundaries, it had erased them, promising a future where the only walls were those they chose to tear down together.